Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Three Siblings Walk Into a Bar. My name is Sage, the middle sibling.
I'm Storm, the youngest sibling.
And I'm Deshay, the oldest sibling.
Y'all both had like these smiles on your face while I was saying that, and I was like, did I say something wrong? Did I do it wrong?
I just was like, I was getting mentally prepared to say my line. I was like,
Yeah.
you're not going to see the middle sibling.
Oh my god.
Also, I really need to get, those like screens that you can like, I was like, I'm tired of people having to see my like printer that's not put together and then like my other printer that's just chilling over here.
Hey,
my dog
we have
cage.
real houses.
Like,
this is
yeah,
real.
I mean, yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
I'm sitting on the side of my bed right now. Like, this is real.
I mean, listen.
I'm sitting at my kitchen table.
Right. Yeah.
I was just doing it, so I was just thinking about it, but I realized today, like when I drive, like I'll have my hand on the wheel, and then I have this hand over here, and I go like this. Like I rub my fingers together. I don't know, and I like rub my fingers together, and I realize I do that so much, and I'm like, I hope people don't like ever look at my car, and I'm like, because with my face, because everybody thinks I'm mad all the time, that I'm like, anyway, it made me think about it, and then when you were talking, and I was like, oh damn, I'm doing it again.
I never noticed.
I don't know, it must be like a thing. I don't know.
I've noticed you do that, but I didn't realize it was so often until you said something about it. But I have noticed that you do that
all the time.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever
Remember
noticed
when you
that.
used to squint, like blink really
hard?
Yes. The blinking.
It's almost like that. Like I do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's
oh my god, I forgot about that.
I don't know what it is.
It's like a.
Thanks for bringing up my childhood trauma, Storm.
I start squinting again. Oh Lord.
Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad.
Eli had started doing that for a little bit, and he went to the eye doctor, and he had to get like he has glasses now for sometimes for when he drives, and then when he like is on his computer or watching TV. I don't know. But I can tell, I'll ask him, I'm like, have you been wearing your glasses? Because I can tell he'll start squinting a lot.
Squinting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Richard, we were talking about that last night because Richard got glasses, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. And his prescription is worse than mine. And I was like, how did you live your life like that? And then I was like, and then like last night, because he was just chilling with them off and then he put them on to watch TV. And I was like, how do you go from in and out of wearing glasses? And he was like, well, I feel like my vision's gotten worse since I've had the glasses. I'm like, no, you've just realized how bad your vision was in the first place. Because now you can see with them on. And so, and I'm like, because I can't watch TV. I can't see well enough to know what's going on, and I can't read subtitles either. I have to have my glasses on, and I'm like, so I don't know how you've survived this long.
Well, and then you just get a headache. That would give me a headache.
A lot of people just get used to it, and then as soon as they have the glasses, they're like, "Oh, I can actually see now."
See this is what it's supposed to look like. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Jeez,
it's crazy.
So my TikTok has been nothing but conspiracy theories and deep ocean, terrifying shit. And I can't stop watching the deep ocean stuff. I can't stop watching it. It's so good. And the barges that are out in the middle of the ocean with a bunch of products and stuff on them. And then the whole ocean. And I'm like, that is terrifying. It was ridiculous. And
Did you ever watch Deadliest Catch?
Pirates.
Yes. Yeah. It was that. But you can see it from the outside. Oh my god.
Yeah.
No.
There's an episode of Deadliest Catch where one of the guys falls overboard, and it's at night, so it's dark. And he falls overboard, and you hear them all scream overboard or whatever, and then the guy turns on this huge light and he's like, no, and he's moving and I guess the guy was able to grab on to the ship or something on the ship or something, and so they got him back up, and I was like, could you imagine?
No.
That is my worst fear is falling into the abyss of the ocean.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw a video of it was an astronaut fixing a satellite or something. And like you see
it's just as bad.
You see him floating in space and then the Earth under him. And I got this like feeling in my stomach. I had to turn it off. And then I sat there and I was like thinking about it. I was like, what just happened? Like, why did that freak you out so much? And it's got to be like the heights or something. But I was thinking, like, if he has like tools and shit, he's going to drop them and then you're never going to get them again.
Well, I mean, if you drop them, they're going to float.
They're going to float.
They're not going to like fall.
I guess so. I don't know. I don't know, dude. Like, space is too big. Like, you're going to drop one of your tools and be like, shit. And then you have to go back to Earth and get another one.
The guy's hammer,
You have to go back, not back to your spaceship, but you have to go back to Earth.
You have to go back to Earth and get another one.
See him like start swimming back to Earth.
Just swim down. Oh my god.
I think they would, like, for the most part, kind of hang out around there by you until you they would start moving. But
I don't know, dude. It was
right.
It was real hard to watch.
Because that's how it is on the like.
I guess
so. I think it's just. I don't think it's heights. I think it's just like the nothingness below you, because that's what I get afraid of with the ocean. It's like you have all this below you, and you can't like. You know. That's how I feel about space too. I can't.
Oh my god!
So he's got the VR, and he's got this one where you can like, you are an astronaut, and you're like in like going around the space station thing, and I hate it. Hate it. And then he's got another one called Climb, where you literally like climb up a mountain, or there's like a skyscraper or whatever. I got so scared. I was sitting there, and I'm like. Because I did the skyscraper one, and Stinky was like, don't look down. He's like, do not look down. And I was like, okay. So I get up there, and I can like, you can like see, because it's like, you know, like the mirror glass. So you can like see behind you, and then like the down. And you have to, and if you let go, like you're going to fall. And I literally froze. I was like, take it off my head. Take it off my head. Take it off. Because I didn't want to let go to have to like... So I was like, take it off, take it off. It was horrible. I hated it.
It's like when we were at Disney and we did that Avatar ride. And we were all freaking out. And it said something about like, if you have motion sickness or a fear of heights, do not ride this. And we were all like, we're doing it anyways. All of them.
Not me.
But we're doing it.
I would rather not feel miserable. I'm good.
Well, the thing is, it's not like I always take when they say stuff like that with a grain of salt, because it really, because I have motion sickness and I'm not afraid of heights, but like I'm not a fan of them, I guess.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any problem on it. So
yeah, I didn't have any issue on it either. I thought I did.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just those things behind the ears. I don't know.
I think it was those motion sickness stickers. Those helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Because every single one of those kids was like, Sage, will you write this with me? Will you write this with me? I'm like, yes, I will.
Because I have my stickies behind here.
Exactly.
My emotional support stickies.
Yeah, you see these stickies? I will. I got you. But the teacups. I did not write the teacups, and I won't. No, ever. Period. Hard pass.
I did write those, and they were actually kind of fun.
Your daughter tried to get me to ride them with her, and I was like, honey, I am so sorry, but no. And mom did it with her, and I was like, I don't know how y'all do this. I can't even watch them.
Well,
like, it makes me dizzy.
Yeah, well, she's kind of easy because she doesn't want it to like, you know, she just wants to like, I mean, it'll still turn by itself, but she doesn't want it to like.
Yeah, no.
You know,
I'm good.
Because that's.
Oh my god, that sounds really gross.
Like macaroni and cheese. Could you imagine if that's what they actually
just
sounded
like?
Oh my god.
I would never hear it. Just
never.
Because it's so many of them.
It's just someone stirring macaroni and cheese over the like loudspeaker.
Oh, thank you. That's okay.
Jeez. You started this.
Listen, I didn't say anything about nothing. Oh gosh! All right.
10 minutes.
When we go back to Disney, is all I'm saying.
Literally.
Okay.
That's true. That's very true.
Tomorrow.
All right.
ASAP.
You guys want to hear a story?
Sure.
I guess.
Oh, speaking of, sorry, because I just said sure, because I'm the same way. When people say sure,
you're mad.
Like it comes across as like you don't want to or whatever.
Yes.
And there was this TikTok I was watching today, and it's this girl, and she goes, "Listen, women can do anything," and she was like, "But this is what I can't do." She's like, "We've had plans forever." And I text you the night before and I say, "Are we still on for tomorrow?" And you say, "Sure." And she was like, "Listen, I'm a girly on Prozac. You can't do that." She's like, "Now I don't want to go."
Very bad.
Oh
yes,
my gosh.
I feel that.
Absolutely
yes.
me. Oh,
and Megan always tells me,
work,
she's like, "You can't say sure. That's not a word. It's not a word." So I literally think about it and I never say it to her.
Well, you know, and it's so funny that I feel that way because at work, people will be like, "Can you do this?" I'm like, "Sure." Like, not even, I'm just like, "Sure."
Yeah.
You know, like it's not like a thing, but like over text message, if you say sure to me and I'm like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
What did I
what's
do?
wrong? Yeah.
Okay.
See, I say sure, like if I'm doing something already and you ask me to do something, I'm like, sure, yeah, just give me a second. Like it's just the way for me to say yes, basically.
Yeah.
But like that's the only time I ever really say it. But if I get a text that says sure, like you're mad at me and we're fighting.
Yeah.
Like I don't
my day is ruined.
Your whole life.
That was it. Yeah. It's just like the
we are no longer
period
related or friends. Do what?
It's just like the okay period.
Oh yeah, or the thumbs up.
Why'd you need to do a period? Oh my God, I did that earlier.
Yes.
I was like,
she's mad about it.
I was like, I'm literally just sitting here waiting on y'all, so I'm just gonna thumbs up them.
I'm overly cautious about text messages and I put exclamation points after everything so that no one thinks I'm mad or like anything. Like it's,
same smiley faces.
I do it all the time. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like we're siblings or something. It's really weird.
It's like related.
Okay. All right. So I am going to tell a little bit of a story today. This man's name is Carl Eugene Watts. And Mr. Watts was born in Killeen, Texas. I think we all know where that is. His father's name was Richard Eugene Watts, and his mother's name was Dorothy Mae Young. Dorothy Mae.
Oh my gosh. I love all of these names so much.
Yes. So he was born on November 7th of 1953. His father was a private first class in the Army, and his mother was a kindergarten art teacher. So Miss Dorothy Mae was a kindergarten art teacher, which is so adorable to me. Okay, so they got married in Colwood, West Virginia. Before Carl was born in 1942, Richard was transferred to Killeen and assigned to the Fort Hood Army Base because it was the site of the American Army's Tank Destroyer Tactical and Firing Center. So apparently he was involved in like the actual like weaponry stuff. So they moved him there.
Yeah.
3 days after his birth, they returned to West Virginia, and a year later, their second child was born. Watt's parents divorced when he was less than 2 years old due to an unsatisfactory marriage, and his mother ended up raising him. In 1962, Dorothy Mae married Norman Caesar, a mechanic, and they had 2 daughters together. They moved to Inkster, Michigan, where she found a job as a high school art teacher. Watts disliked his new stepfather, which made it difficult for him to fit in with the new family. So basically, he was kind of like out of place in this like new blended family. Watts claimed that he was referred to as a mama's boy and was often worried about losing his mother's attention. So she has a new husband and 2 new daughters, and so he's really worried that he's going to fall by the wayside. So Dorothy May, Carl, and Sharon frequently visited Dorothy's mother and family in Colwood, where Dorothy was born and raised. In the woods near his grandmother's house, Carl's grandfather taught him to learn to hunt and skin rabbits, which he enjoyed both of those activities immensely. Cool. This is funny to me. Carl later adopted the nickname Coral, which was the southern pronunciation of his name. Have you guys seen the National Lampoon's spoof of The Walking Dead?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a character in The Walking Dead named Carl, and apparently the dad pronounces it Coral, and so it's a joke throughout the entire movie. He's like, "Dad, my name's not Carl." Anyways, I just thought it was funny because apparently Carl and Coral, it's like an actual thing. Okay. So Coral ended up having some troubles in school in Inkster, but he did manage to get okay grades. Watts and his sister caught meningitis when he was 8 years old, and it nearly killed him and caused him to be held back a year and miss the entirety of the 3rd grade. Which is insane to me because that's huge, formative years.
Yeah.
Watts was brought to Herman Kiefer Hospital, where he had to be kept apart from the other patients and undergo spinal taps regularly. This 8-year-old kid in the hospital. Journalists claimed that Watts' body temperature was so high that physicians were worried that it could have caused brain damage.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's wild. After his meningitis, his family members also noticed a change in his personality, starting to describe him as bashful, quiet, and introverted, which would freak the shit out of me. Your kid's sick for a very long time, he goes away to the hospital, and then when he comes back, he's a completely different person. That's insane.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, it's almost, I mean, I know it's not anybody's fault, but it's almost like torture. You were sit in this place by yourself, horribly sick. You had to get spinal taps, which are not fun.
Right.
He's isolated from everybody.
Yeah.
And he's 8 years old. Yeah.
He's 8.
Yeah, he doesn't. So
horrible.
As well as his personality changing, his attention span dropped to almost nothing, and he began to suffer from poor memory. So he would forget everything, he couldn't keep attention on anything, and he was just not the same person. Watts did struggle to keep up with the other kids after he returned to school because he was held back an entire year. And the sickness made him experience chronic fatigue, which didn't help with his schooling either. So he was constantly tired. He didn't have an attention span. He was behind on everything. So he couldn't get it back together, basically.
Yeah.
So Coral started having violent dreams about battling off and killing the wicked spirits of women, which would happen to him almost every night. So he's 8 or 9 years old, and he's starting to have dreams about him. He said that they were evil spirits, but they were women. And he would battle them and kill them in his dreams. So when detectives questioned him about his crimes and asked him why he killed these women, in the future, he responded that he wanted to free their spirits because they had evil eyes. Yeah.
That's sick.
By the time he was 12 years old, according to Watts, he began to accept and even look forward to his sleep-induced fantasies of torturing and killing young women. So,
oh my God.
He's had these for a few years now, and they're not scary to him anymore. They're he looks forward to them. This is what he wants to do.
They're fun.
He likes, he feels like he's doing something, basically helping.
Yeah.
So when he was a teenager, Watts started stalking girls. And it was suspected that his first victim, was done before he was the age of 15. But there's not really any evidence or anything, so no one really knows what actually happened. So this is going to kind of jump around all over the place, but we'll keep on track. Okay. He frequently received failing grades in school, and by the age of 16, he could only read at a 4th grade level. He was severely bullied at school because he was held back when he was a kid, and he was never able to like catch up to where everybody else was, basically. Right. So he was bullied for it.
Kids are such assholes.
Kids are mean. Kids
yes.
Yeah.
On June 29th in 1969, 15-year-old Watts was identified as a culprit in the assault of a 26-year-old woman named Joan Gave. While delivering newspapers on his routes, Watts knocked on Gave's apartment door, and Watts beat Gave when she opened the door, and then he continued his delivery route like nothing happened. Gave immediately contacted the authorities, who apprehended Coral at his house, and he was ordered to undergo psychiatric treatment at the Lafayette Clinic in Detroit. During his psychiatric evaluation, Coral was asked if his dreams and nightmarish visions disturbed him. And he replied, "No, I feel better after I have one," and claimed that they were not nightmares because he actually enjoyed them.
Oh, that's just... oh.
Yeah. So when asked about the motivation for the assault on Gabe, he responded with saying, "I just felt like beating someone up," which is the most terrifying thing I have ever fucking heard.
Wow.
That's, yeah.
It's so scary, you know, just like yeah. Isaac Keys, you know, where it was like they were just there, like it wasn't anything. Like that's the worst part of it.
Exactly. There's not really like motivation behind this. It's just kind of like happening because he wanted to, basically.
Yeah.
So according to the psychiatric assessment, Watts was revealed to have a mind intellectual disability with an IQ of 75, and to have a delusional thought process with no evidence of psychosis. So basically they just think he's delusional. He's not he's not actually psychotic. They just are like, no, he just doesn't know what's up, kind of thing, is what they're saying, basically.
Like they're just kind of calling him like dumb.
Kind of. Yeah.
Is that what they're doing? Okay.
Pretty much.
Of course.
However, a police officer interrogating Watts after his arrest later stated that he appeared to be very, very intelligent and have an excellent memory. So the question is he just putting this on now?
Yeah.
Sounds right, yeah.
Did he realize that when he was a kid and he fell behind, he got more attention when he acted like he didn't know what was going on? Who knows? Who knows if that's actually what happened? But
yeah.
Also, Watts' psychiatrist later reported that Coral was an impulsive individual who has passive-aggressive orientation to life and who is struggling to control the strong homicidal impulses. So he's not psychotic, but he does have these homicidal impulses and he's struggling to control them. So he thought that Coral posed a threat to society and hoped that the adolescent would benefit from an outpatient therapy. So this is what I don't get. This kid has homicidal tendencies and you're letting him be an outpatient.
That's what I
let that make sense.
No. That's stupid. That's
it doesn't. So he was discharged from the Lafayette clinic on his 16th birthday and visited the facility 9 more times for outpatient care over the years. So he only went back 9 times, which is insane.
And you said over years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Like outpatient, I'm assuming like normally it's at least like once a week or something, like every other day, something, depending on what it is. But a doctor just said he has these homicidal urges that he's struggling to control, and you let him go. I just don't get it. During his time in various mental institutions, Watts, oh my goodness, y'all. Watts was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. Watts graduated from high school in 1973 at the age of 19, and he was given a football scholarship to Lane College in Jackson, Tennessee, despite his low grades and drug use after his release. Watts said that exercising allowed him to Watts said that exercising allowed him to let out his suppressed rage. So he's actively saying, like, I'm pissed. I'm mad. I have homicidal urges. Why are people not taking this on? Like, what? I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. He was able to achieve almost stardom as a football player and even a great success in boxing after he became the Golden Gloves fighter. After 3 months, he was dismissed from Lane College after being charged with stalking and assaulting a woman who received minor leg injuries. So he lost his scholarship altogether. Many people at Lane College thought Watts was suspected in the violent killing of a female student, even though there was insufficient evidence to hold him accountable for the crime. It was still a topic of discussion after he was expelled. So people still, like, even after he was gone, they were like, no, dude, like, it was him. He did it. But there was no evidence. He briefly lived in Houston, Texas following his expulsion, and then spent a year working as a mechanic for a Detroit wheel manufacturer. In 1974, when Coral entered Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo, a string of heinous assaults and attacks on women started to occur. Excuse me. Sorry. Talk amongst yourselves. I know.
Jeez.
How dare you? All right. So, Watts's first confirmed murders took place when he was 20 years old in 1974 by kidnapping his victims from their homes, torturing them, and then murdering them. He attacked in several different jurisdictions and even in different states. Most of his victims were thin, attractive white women. The methods he used were strangulation, stabbing, bludgeoning, and drowning. His victims ranged in ages between 14 and 44.
14?
Watts murdered 14. Yeah. Watts murdered dozens of women between 1974 and 1982. And despite the many women he murdered, he was not discovered as a serial killer for almost 8 years.
Holy
shit.
There's a string of 8 years that he was murdering people that he was not caught.
Wow. Is it just because he did it everywhere? Maybe they couldn't
that was part
connect
of
it all.
That was part of it. It was all over the place, and you'll find out later, like, there's no evidence anywhere. Basically, like it was very hard to catch this guy. So even with the implementing of DNA testing, it was nearly impossible to connect them because he rarely performed sexual acts on his victims. None of his his crimes were believed to not be sexually motivated, which is honestly part of like why it's so scary to me, because it's not it's not quite opportunity, but it's
most
very
of the
similar.
time it is.
Right.
Yeah.
But the way that he talked about the women and like the evil spirits, basically, like it sounds like he was driving by and he saw them and then followed them from there. It wasn't like he's been stalking this woman for a while kind of thing. But apparently he was also stalking people in college, so who knows what he was actually doing. So Watts may have been involved in the disappearance of Nadine Odell, who was 16 years old when she disappeared on August 16th of 1974. She was last seen walking down John Daly Street in Inkster, Michigan, on her way to babysit at her boyfriend's house in Taylor, Michigan. Her body was never found, and there were no witnesses to her presumed abduction. At 10:45 a.m. on October 25th in 1974, Coral knocked on 23-year-old Lenore Nizaki's apartment. These names, y'all. Lenore unlocked the door but kept it chained, and Coral kept calling out for Charles, which was the name of one of his siblings. She told him that there was no one named Charles here, but he could leave a note if he wanted to. So she undid the chain and she turned around to go grab a piece of paper. Coral then attacked her, choked her until she was unconscious. Police were later alerted by Lenore, but they were unable to find her attacker. So after she came to, she called the police, but they weren't able to find him because there was no evidence. There was nothing there.
Yeah.
Gloria Steele, 20 years old, was tortured and brutally killed by Watts on October 30th of 1974. She is thought to have been his second victim. She attended Western Michigan University while raising her family. She was discovered with a crushed windpipe and 33 chest stab wounds from a wooden carving instrument.
Oh my gosh.
33. So, does that mean that he stabbed her and then choked her? Because she had a crushed windpipe. So was that to...
I feel like she had to choked first, right?
That's what yeah.
But
there's no way you were going to survive that many stab wounds.
No.
Yeah.
That's, yeah. So he's mad, basically. Like, you can tell he's just pissed off. And he just doesn't know what to do with it. So there was no witnesses other than a woman named Diane Williams, an apartment resident manager who saw a man searching for Charles walking around their apartment complex. So he's been seen by somebody else, but they can't do anything because they can't pick him out, basically.
Yeah.
So when Coral saw her, he grabbed her, pushed her into an open door, and dragged Williams inside of her apartment. Her phone started ringing, and the two were fighting, and she was able to knock it off of the hook and yelled for help into the phone. Williams was able to get to the window and see her attacker get into a tan Pontiac Grand Prix. So this is the first time that anyone's seen a car that he's in. So now they have a description of him and they have what vehicle he's driving. So the police assembled a lineup, and Williams and Nizaki recognized Coral, who had just been arrested for stealing plywood from the campus of Western Michigan University.
Okay.
For both the Nizaki and Williams cases, he was taken into custody and charged with assault and battery. After being diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder and attempting suicide with a length of cord at the Kalamazoo Mental Hospital, Watts was moved to the Center for Forensic Psychiatry in Michigan. So he wasn't having a good time there, and he was having a hard time, so they had to move him. So when Watts was questioned about the death of Steele in 1975, he acknowledged that he had been nearby the day before Gloria had died, and he insisted that he didn't kill her. But he says he didn't kill her, but there's like 15 other young women that were hurt around there, so they don't really believe him. They're trying to get the real story out of him, basically. So when Detroit police executed a search of Watts's residence, they discovered wooden carving tools and no other evidence that would connect him to Gloria's death. So does he know what he's doing and he's hiding evidence, or is it just like that, like quick that he doesn't need to
leave anything behind?
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah. He entered a no contest plea at his trial for the assault and battery of Nizaki and Williams, and was sentenced to a year in county jail.
For assault and battery?
Of 2 different women. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. His psychologist classified him as being extremely hazardous, lacking in remorse for his crimes, impetuous, careless, and emotionally distant, with a high likelihood of recidivism. A high likelihood of recidivism. Why are you letting him out? So Watts returned to Inkster after being released from prison in 1976 and moved in with his mother and his stepfather. Coral impregnated Dolores Howard, a childhood friend, in 1979, and the two gave birth to Nikisha Watts. Shortly after Coral and Dolores split up, soon after that, he married another woman, Valeria Goodwill. Goodwill claimed that shortly after their marriage, he started acting really weird. He would move furniture around their house just randomly, like just move all of the furniture. He would use kitchen knives, and he would walk around the house and he would chop up houseplants. He would break candles and melt them onto tables.
What?
And then he would dump trash on the floor and leave it there. So none of this sounds like
murderous.
It doesn't sound like normal behavior. It sounds like he has something going on inside of his head, and no one else really knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
So he would also get up and leave after they had sex or any kind of intimate encounter, and he would just disappear for hours at a time. Could you imagine? I would be so mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
where the
what
hell
the
are you
fuck?
going?
Like, did I upset you or something? Like,
all right, thanks. I'm gonna leave for a few hours. I'll be back. Like,
yeah.
no, that's not happening. So obviously, their relationship only lasted for 6 months, which is 6 months longer than I would have lasted. I don't, girl, I don't know. Get your man.
Well, like their relationship or their marriage, because they were married. So, like, how long was their dating life for?
It can't
like,
have been
did
that
they
long.
get married instantly? Like,
it can't have been that long because, like, his ex or the girl that he, his baby mama, like they had just had the kid before they got married. So
yeah, so it couldn't have been long at all.
Yeah.
This is why you don't marry somebody you've been with for 20 minutes.
Thank you.
True.
Been there, done that, not doing it again.
Samesies.
So 5 women were attacked and killed in the Detroit region over the course of a year by a perpetrator who was dubbed by the Ann Arbor newspapers as the Sunday Morning Slasher, since all of his attacks took place on Sunday mornings around 4 a.m. So it wasn't exactly opportunity, because they were all at the same time. They weren't at the same time, but they were all around the same time, which is interesting. And I wonder if he did that on purpose.
Well, and I'm not sure if it was like, I mean, I don't know enough about it, but I'm like, if you're having some sort of like, I don't know the proper words or the
some sort of like mental
politically
episode.
Correct word to use, but if you're having like a psychotic break, would you get those at the same time? Or would they like, you know what I mean? Like, could it always be at 4 o'clock in the morning, or would it be like
I see what you're saying.
unknown times?
Is it like a tick, kind of like a trigger?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. He doesn't. He never really explains it, which is so fascinating to me. Like, why was it always Sundays and why was it always at 4 a.m.? So
didn't he say that?
Go ahead.
He thought they were like demons or something.
Yes. Yeah. So it's Sunday.
Right. So that. Yeah. And early in the morning, like sense. 3, 4.
Yeah.
The witching hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I didn't think about that. Or like my personal opinion or thoughts on it. I have no evidence for this, but like something must have happened to him on a Sunday when he was a kid. And like, it's just kind of like triggering. Like, he may not have known what his triggers were, basically. And so he didn't know why he was doing it, but it was happening.
Makes sense.
On October 31st of 1979, Jeanne Klein, a 44-year-old reporter from the Detroit News, was attacked as she walked home from a doctor's appointment. She was approached in broad daylight next to her Grosse Pointe Farms house on a major suburban road. The middle of the day, on a busy suburban street, she was stabbed 11 times. Insufficient evidence was discovered by police to identify the suspect. Again.
Of course. Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah. In the middle of the day. And she's a reporter. Like, on top of all of that.
So, like, people know her probably.
Yes.
Like, they can probably pick her out, you know?
Yeah. So, detectives initially suspected Jeanne's husband, but once Coral admitted to her murder, he was ruled out, obviously. So, Shirley Small, a 17-year-old high school student from Ann Arbor, Michigan, was fatally stabbed twice in the heart outside of her home on April 20th of 1980. So it's interesting that she was only stabbed twice.
Yeah.
Because most of the other ones are nothing under 10. So I wonder what it was. She was 17. She was one of the younger ones. So maybe that was something.
Maybe he got spooked by something or something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Glenda Richmond was 26 years old, was the victim of a similar assault on July 13th of 1980 in front of her summer house in Ann Arbor, Michigan. She sustained 28 knife wounds to her chest. At both of the crime scenes, there was insufficient evidence to convict anyone.
That's crazy.
However, they basically kind of had Watts on their radar at this point, like fucking finally. But they were like, okay, we don't have any evidence, but this is kind of like what Watts was doing. So maybe we should start kind of watching him again.
Paying attention, Maybe now we should
maybe.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah. It's not like he was homicidal when he was a kid and we let him out multiple times. I'm not mad about this or anything. I'm not salty.
He was literally telling people
that
he had these issues. Like,
yes.
Yep.
It wasn't a secret.
No. Graduate student Rebecca Huff, age 20 years old, the University of Michigan, was found dead on September 14th of 1980 in front of her house. She had suffered 50 stab wounds. Her case was the first homicide that could be directly attributed to Coral. So, while he's up in Michigan, the Canadian authorities do believe that he crossed over the border into Windsor, Ontario, during that October and assaulted 20-year-old Sandra Delepe outside of her apartment, leaving her near death with multiple stab wounds to the face and throat. But she survived.
Oh my God.
She ended up with partially paralyzed muscles, could hardly eat or move her head, and her arms barely moved over her head due to the deep slashes that she sustained on her face, and one even ruptured her jugular vein. So she was insanely
old. She survived all that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ooh.
What a badass.
She was meant to be here.
Oh my God.
Right. Yeah. So he was in Michigan at the time, so they think he just kind of like hopped over, but there's literally nothing that says that he did it. There's no evidence anywhere. So they don't really know, but
which is pretty much evidence in itself, at this point.
Yeah. But it's wild to me that you're just able to just hop over to another country real quick, commit a murder, and then come back. I don't get it. On November 1st, Angus, a 30-year-old woman, spotted a black man wearing a hooded sweatshirt as she was making her way home from a Halloween party. She kept an eye on him, and he bent down to tie his shoes as soon as she pulled out her keys and then immediately followed her. So he's been watching her, and she just noticed that he's been watching her. And so now she's watching him. So she ran to her front door while screaming to the top of her lungs, and he was startled by her response. So he ended up turning around and running away. So apparently he was able to catch the other ones off guard so much that they didn't scream, which sounds horrible, but she knew what was happening. So she was able to do something.
Yeah.
And so it scared him enough that he was like, no, and left. She identified Carl Watts from a lineup of photos, and she was not sure because the outside of her house was very dimly lit during the time of her attack. But she picked him out. So Watts had fallen under scrutiny from local homicide investigations. Finally, a task force was organized in July of 1980 to investigate the Sunday slashings. And they even put Watts under sporadic surveillance. I don't understand why it was sporadic. Like, he should have been being watched the entire time, but it was sporadic. A November court order permitted officers to plant a homing device on his car. So now they know where he is at all times. On November 15th, at around 5 a.m, 2 police officers on patrol in the vicinity of Main Street in Ann Arbor saw a suspicious man in a car following a woman as she was walking home. She attempted to hide in the doorway after realizing that she was being followed in the hopes that her stalker would lose her. Coral nearly went crazy when he lost track of the woman he was pursuing. So what that tells me is that he was picking these women and then following them. Because why else would he go crazy for losing her?
Trying to find her. Yeah.
Right. So Coral was detained by police after they pulled him over for having outdated license plates and a suspended license. Additionally, they examined his car and discovered a package containing wood filing equipment and a few screwdrivers. So all of the stab wounds to all of the people were from wood carving implements. So there they are. Their most important discovery, however, was a dictionary that belonged to Huff and had Rebecca is a lover carved into it. It was insufficient proof, though, to hold him responsible for her death.
Okay.
It's all there. So Coral relocated to Columbus, Texas in the spring of 1981, where he worked for an oil firm. He spent his weekend nights traveling almost 70 miles to do his hunting in the Houston region. So he has been literally all over the place. So Michelle Madej, then 20 years old, answered the door to her Houston apartment in May 23rd of 1982 to find a suspicious looking man standing there. So she opened her door and there's a guy standing there. Unexpectedly, the stranger assaulted, beat, and choked her until she passed out. The man entered her bathroom and filled the bathtub up with water and drowned her. Later that day, Melinda Aguilar, 18 years old, and Lori Lester, 21 years old, had their Houston apartment broken into by Watts. He choked Lister down on the stairs below the apartment when she was returning to from work. And then he went into the apartment and started to choke Aguilar as well. Aguilar pretended to be unconscious while Watts tied her hands with wire behind her back. He then hauled Lister up the stairs into the bathroom and filled up the bathtub with water and drowned her. Aguilar, however, was able to escape while Watts was focused on Lister and leapt out the window to go get help. Lister was saved, and Watts was apprehended after evading capture. So they're both cool. They're both good. And then he was picked up after he ran. While Watts was being held, investigators started to connect him to several recent killings of women. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Prosecutors in Texas did not believe they had enough evidence to find Watts guilty of murder. In May of 1982, after the attacks of Aguilar and Lister, Harris County, Iowa, fucking plea bargain. So, Watts would only be charged with burglary with intent to murder if he confessed fully to his crimes and received immunity from the prosecution on the murder accusations.
What the actual fuck?
They're giving him a deal.
Immunity?
Because they don't think they have enough evidence to completely convict him.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
Okay. So I'm
so irritated.
Yes. A 60-year sentence was imposed for this offense. The deal was accepted, and he later led the detectives to the graves of 3 of his victims. Coral finally acknowledged attacking 19 women, murdering 13 of them. So he remembers all of them. Basically, he knows all of them. Coral admitted to killing 44-year-old Jeanne Klein in Detroit in 1979, but refrained from confessing the deaths of Glenda Richard, Shirley Small, and Rebecca Huff. However, Michigan authorities refused to go in on the deal, so the cases in that state remained, which is good. He's just being thrown all over the place, basically. So they were like, no, I'm not doing that deal because we do have some evidence and he's fucking going to jail for it, which is good.
Yeah.
So Linda Tilley, 22 years old, a student at the University of Texas, was drowned in the swimming pool of her apartment complex in September of 1981, according to his confession. 1 week later, he also killed Elizabeth Montgomery, 25 years old, by stabbing her. Susan Wolfe, 21 years old, was several steps from her apartment when she was fatally stabbed in the arm and chest while going home after purchasing ice cream from the grocery store. Coral acknowledged another murder in January of 1982, that of 27-year-old Phyllis Tam, who was attacked while she was jogging. Coral alleged that after choking her with his hands, he tied her with an elastic strap to a tree branch and hung her there. God. Okay. Margaret Fosse, a 25-year-old architect student who appeared to have passed away from a strike to the throat, was murdered by Coral almost 2 days later. So basically, he hit her hard enough in the throat that she died. Yeah. At Rice University, her body was discovered in the trunk of her vehicle. Coral claimed that he burnt her shoes, her pocketbook, the blueprints that she was carrying, and her belongings in an effort to destroy her spirit.
Okay.
Additionally, Watts said to authorities that on January 16th, he later saw Julia Sanchez, a young woman, attempting to fix a flat tire on the side of the road. Sanchez was left for dead after Watts had cut her throat. Despite this, she lived. Coral claimed to have assaulted 2 additional women in the Houston region that same month. Patty Johnson, the 19-year-old, was attacked on January 30th of 1982 as she was getting into her car and headed home. Watts slashed her throat in an attempt to kill her. Watts left after hearing someone yell, what's going on? Basically, someone screamed, and he was like, oh, shit, and left. Johnson survived, and up until Watts admitted guilt, another man had received a life sentence for the assault, which is just like another fucking terrifying thing. Yeah. The second victim Watts claimed was Martell, a 19-year-old who had been attacked outside of her residence and stabbed 3 times with a screwdriver, but managed to survive. So he's not sticking around, basically. He's like getting out his anger, moving on, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Coral has admitted to killing Elena Samander, 20 years old, Emily Lacroix, 14 years old, Anna Ledette, 34 years old, Yolanda Garcia, 21 years old, Carrie Jefferson, 32 years old, Susan Surreals, 25 years old, Michelle Naday, 20 years old, between February and May of 1982. February, March, April, May.
Jesus
4 months.
Christ.
And he admitted to killing that many people.
Too many. Oh
Coral was never put on trial for the majority of his murders, despite his confessions, due to the agreement that he made.
What? That was just for that one city.
Yes.
Right?
Because of the deal that he made in Texas, he was never tried there. So, in Michigan, because they were like, no, fuck that, we're not giving him that deal, he was sent back to Michigan for another trial. So Watts was sentenced...
for Michigan.
Yeah, exactly. Watts was sentenced to the agreed 60 years in 1982. However, shortly after beginning to serve his time, the Texas Court of Appeals ruled that he had not been informed that the bathtub water he attempted to drown Lori Lester in was considered a deadly weapon. That's insane.
Bathtub water?
Was considered a deadly weapon. So he was not informed of that during his trial. So the ruling reclassified him as a non-violent felon, making him eligible for early release. So someone fucked up somewhere and didn't let him know that the water that was in the bathtub was considered a deadly weapon. Therefore, that one little mistake, that's it. And now he's eligible for early release.
I feel like when it comes to murder, it shouldn't be what you murdered somebody with that makes you dangerous, but it should be the fact that you murdered somebody.
Exactly.
Like, that seems crazy to me.
I still can't get over the bathwater.
It's the fact that he wasn't told that the bathwater was a deadly weapon. That's the whole thing. It's not just the bathwater. It's because he wasn't told. I just don't
crazy.
get it.
Why should
that's insane.
Be told that?
Right.
I don't good Lord. I hate it. I hate everything about it.
Makes zero sense.
This is Texas.
Well, yeah, that's about right.
It's like, does he have a friend in there? Are they helping him get away with this shit? Is what it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that, like, his lawyers would have gone back and been like, oh, well, you didn't tell us this, therefore he gets off early. Like, he's done enough that people know. So, at the time, Texas law allowed nonviolent felons that have to have 3 days deducted from their sentence for every 1 day served, as long as it was well behaved. Watts was a model prisoner. And
oh my God, of course he was.
Had enough time deducted from his sentence that he was released early as May 9th of 2006. So he would have been released way early. Too early. Yeah, the law allowing early release was abolished after public outcry, but could not be applied retroactively according to the Texas Constitution. So he's just getting all the good luck, basically, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
When he deserves zero of it. Yeah.
Exactly. In 2004, Michigan Attorney General Michael Cox went on national television asking for anyone to come forward with information in order to try and convict Watts of murder to ensure that he was not released. So at this point, they're like, we don't have enough and we're freaking out. So they go to the public. They go to the full public.
They're like, hi, here's a murderer, and if you don't want him to be let out, then you need to help us.
Someone needs to know something. Exactly.
Yeah.
Joseph Foy from Westland, Michigan, came forward to say that he had seen a man fitting Watts' description murder Helen Dutcher, a 36-year-old woman who died after being stabbed 12 times on December 1st of 1979. Could you imagine living with something like that for that long? Like seeing someone be murdered and then not be able to do anything about it?
No.
Foy identified
You know how
Watts.
good that probably felt, though.
Oh, yeah. Foy identified Watts
I will
by
help you with this.
Exactly. So he was shown pictures and he was like, that's him. And he was able to pick him out because of his eyes. He described his eyes as being evil and devoid of emotion, which is crazy to me. But like, I guess if you see a bunch of people next to each other, like one of them, you're gonna remember something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Although Watts had immunity for prosecution of the 13 killings that he admitted to in Texas, he had no immunity agreement in Michigan. before his 2004 trial, law enforcement officers asked the trial judge to allow the Texas confessions into evidence, to which he agreed. So after they gave him the plea deal in Texas, they were like, you still have to tell us what happened. And he did. So now Michigan's like, give us that information. And they do, which is good. Watts was promptly charged with the murder of Helen Dutcher, which is the testimony that Joseph Foy came forward with. On December 7th, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. 2 days later, authorities in Michigan started making moves to try him for the murder of Western Michigan University student Gloria Steele, who was stabbed to death in 1974. Watts' trial for Steele's murder began in Kalamazoo, Michigan on July 25th of 2007, and closing arguments concluded on July 26th. If that tells you anything. The following day, the jury returned with a guilty verdict. Watts was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole on September 13th. He was incarcerated in a maximum security prison in Michigan, and he passed away of prostate cancer in September 21st of 2007 in a Jackson, Michigan hospital.
Crazy.
So that's the Sunday slinging slasher SpongeBob.
Slinging slasher. I hate it.
I hated it. That was wow.
I hated all of it.
Tough.
That was so much information.
Oh my gosh. I've never been so frustrated in my life.
I know.
That's
I was reading this and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. I'm sure like there's lots of it that I don't know about because I'm not in law enforcement or any of that. But I'm sure there's lots of it that we don't know about that we're not seeing. But it just looks very frustrating to the commonplace person that's looking at this from the outside.
Yeah, that's what's hard about these is it's like why would they do that? But it's like we really don't know the laws and the rules and everything that goes into it.
Because we watch these like
you to be an outsider.
Yeah, we watch these documentaries all the time, and then they interview the cops, and the cops are like, "We couldn't do anything because of this." But like when we look at it from the outside, we're like, "Why aren't you doing this?" So we never really know, but it's super frustrating to that the way the law is, I guess, like stuff like this can happen. You murder 13 people,
well, it's
and
like, it's made to.
That was it.
I mean, it's made to protect,
innocent
people, right? Yeah. So that they can't, they can't just come in and accuse you of things. But
right.
At what point is it like, okay, well, this dude is, I mean, I get it, I do, but it's just crazy. It's just like I was watching an episode with one of the Wahlberg brothers has a TV show that he does, and the first episode was about John Wayne Gacy. And, those police had a lot of issues too.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had like the detectives and stuff in there, and they were like, listen, like there was like this we couldn't do, and then this we couldn't do, and then we did this, and we did this. But like, you don't ever hear about that stuff. You just hear about the stuff that was screwed up on or whatever,
This one was,
of course, that's
this one was very like scary for me because like there was no evidence anywhere. So he was coming up to these women right when they were about to walk into their houses, and like the only thing that they could have gotten was the type of weapon. How was he not leaving fingerprints on their bathtubs? How was he not doing this? They had surveillance on him, sporadic surveillance on him. Like that's why it's so scary to me, is because all of this was going on in his head. There was no outside factors. Is this making sense? Am I?
Yes, and then and there's no, and like when you stab somebody that many times, like that's an excessive amount of blood you're gonna have, and you didn't step in it, like you didn't leave a footprint in you, like nothing.
Yeah,
like that's crazy.
So there must have been some evidence.
That's what it is.
Because they kept saying like there's not enough evidence, like they can't put him specifically to it. So there must have been some kind of evidence, but it wasn't enough. Which
we also have to think about the time, like late 70s, early 80s. Like
that's true.
That's
true. There wasn't like
they didn't
DNA
have a lot of that. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that makes me think of like the Night Stalker. Like they would have gotten him early, probably way earlier.
Oh yeah. It did even say that like even with the DNA stuff, they still weren't able to pin him down on anything. His confession was literally the only thing that put him away.
That's crazy.
Good job.
Nuts of hands. Yes, good job. That was a lot of information. I would have gotten all tangled up.
I'm pretty sure I went cross-eyed a few different times. But yeah, it was that was a lot better than I was expecting it to be.
No, you did really good.
Really good.
The psychological ones where there's not really any kind of like definite this is why I did this kind of thing, those are the ones that really fuck with me.
Yeah, because it's not like he had like a horrible mom that like abused him, because most of them's like, oh, I was horribly abused by this, and so now I feel like I gotta murder these people, or like, and it was just not like he just,
I mean, it could have been literally anything.
We know he had a normal childhood.
It was pretty normal, but at the same time, like
sick, but
he moved around all over the place. His parents divorced when he was really young. He had a stepdad that he didn't like. He was behind in school. He was bullied in school. Like none of those are excuses, but at the same time, like it kind of explains that he grew up in his head.
Yeah.
Which is terrifying.
Absolutely. Especially, I mean, if he was in the hospital for that long, like he missed a whole year of school from being sick and he was isolated, like that'll fuck anybody up.
Yeah.
Yes.
At 8 years old, which is super, super formative. And then he couldn't catch up and he kept getting bullied in school. So he just hated school. So it was just one thing right after the other. But it's just, it's wild to me that the like fantasy that he would have, like when he was a kid, like he wanted to have those dreams because it felt like he was doing some good, I guess. It's so wild.
Oh, yeah, that's scary.
All right. Well, everyone think about mental health and stuff, That's what everybody wants to do at 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, man.
Well, that was
I'm going to be afraid to go to bed now.
I expected. I'm sorry. But like nowadays, everyone has like Ring doorbells and shit like that. Like none of this shit's going to happen like this anymore. But it's still scary that like I don't know. Just the psychology behind his childhood, I guess, is the super fascinating part.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
It explains a lot. And I guess it's different because, like, we see it as, like, a story, like a whole, basically. Like, I saw from when he was born until when he died. And when you're in that, like, when you're growing up with them or, like, you're in their life, you're not going to see stuff like that. We're seeing it now that you're going back and looking at it. So... who really knows?
Just like all these things added up, Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, on that note, Storm, where can they find the rest of us? The rest of us, like there's more of us. We've been hiding a lot of siblings, you guys.
Listen. Oh, gosh. We are on Facebook, Three Siblings Walk Into a Bar. We are on Instagram at 3Slip Podcast. Go on there, like, comment, do all the things. Also, please rate and review. It's very, very helpful for us, especially on Apple, because they are really picky about that. YouTube, we're on the tubes. Go watch us on YouTube. And yeah.
All right. Well, that's what happens when three siblings walk into a bar.